The prototype model, which is built for the experience of the customer feedback, is thrown away. Suppose if there is any functionality or features requested by the customer is missed out, then it can be incorporated easily and it can be rectified very easily with the help of this prototyping model. The developed prototype can be reused for next required customers. The prototype is to be refined, then final product is developed, delivery and maintained. This process is repeated continuously. Hello everyone, it is Dr. Ravi Kumar YB, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, MYSURU, the Temple of Excellence. In today's class, I am going to teach about the extreme prototyping technique, which is one of the prototyping techniques which I have discussed in the previous session. That is, the extreme prototyping technique includes the project cycling and delivery robust and fast and keeps the entire developer team focus centralized on products deliveries rather than discovering all possible needs and specifications and adding unnecessary features. The meaning of this indicates the project cycling indicates the customer, developer, and the prototype model first customer interacts with the developer, then developer with prototyping model, then with customer. If this case is continued, this process of repetitions or refinement takes place continuously until the customer's requirement is met. So, this project cycling and delivery robust and fast and keeps the entire developer team, that is the developer team, focused towards the centralized on products deliveries rather than discovering all possible needs and specifications, adding the necessitated features into the prototype model every time when the new functionalities needs to be added. Functionalities to be added. So if that is the case, if you look at this diagram, you will clearly understand that the user initial set of user requirements, then quick design is performed here, then whether they develop the prototype here first, then evaluation of prototype is carried out, then if there is any few more changes or if there is any new requirements to be incorporated into the prototype model, then again he comes back to the developer so that a quick design is made once again and then the prototype model is developed. Once it is completed, we will move on to the evaluation phase of the prototype model, that is whether all of the requirements of a customer is met with respect to the prototype model. Once it is completed, once they are familiar with all of the requirements of a client in terms of their requirements in the form of prototype model, that is, we say that the prototype is accepted. Once the prototype is accepted, it is delivered to the customer. This is called as customer delivery. This is called as, if it is not ready, if the prototype model is not ready, we will go to the other side of the branch. That is, in this case, we have to refine the prototype, as we have already the requirements is refined, then the prototype is to be refined, then final product is developed, delivery and maintained. This process is repeated continuously. This process is repeated continuously until the final evolutionary prototyping technique is developed. When the prototype is accepted, but there are few more requirements which needs to be met in the form of a prototype model, then the prototype discard the prototype by following the information like discard prototype, develop final SRS, then we have design, then implementation, test, delivery and maintenance. Then we have to go back to the discarded prototype, and then we have to verify whether all of these requirements are met or not. That is, prototype model which is discarded, develop the final SRS, design, implementation, test, deliver and maintenance, which is already discussed. That is in the case of software process model. The same thing is followed here. Then ultimately, when all these refinements are done, we will move on to the throwaway prototyping. That means the prototype model which is built for the experience of the customer feedback is thrown away once the complete prototype is implemented and it is available in the original product. Once when the original product is ready, the prototype model is thrown away. That is why it is called as rapid throwaway prototyping. The other ways of rapid throwaway prototyping is that immediately when the requirement of a client is requested to the company delivers a prototype model that is called as rapid throwaway prototyping model. That means immediate delivery of the working model, which is not an actual working model, which is a prototype model that is delivered to the customer to gain some experience of using the software product by the customer. So this is how we are going to do that. What are the advantages? The customers get to see the partial product early in the life cycle. That means in the life cycle of the software process, the customers will gain experience of using the software product. This ensures a greater level of customer satisfaction and comfort. That means they will feel the comfortability of using the software product even after the delivery of the original software product. So that is how we are going to do that. Then new requirements can be easily accommodated or incorporated as there is scope for refinement, because there is a scope for refinement and incorporation of new features into the prototype model. So there will be ultimately the developed software prototype will be the one which is full-fledged software which can be made utilized for the requirements of a customer. So this is how we are going to do that. Then missing functionalities can be easily figured out. Suppose if there is any functionality or features requested by the customer is missed out, then it can be incorporated easily and it can be rectified very easily with the help of this prototyping model. Then, which is the next advantage of using the prototyping model? That is, errors can be detected much earlier, thereby it saves lots of effort and cost besides enhancing the quality of the software. What is the meaning of the ultimate goal of this is to improvise or enhance the quality of a software. But in addition to that, effort and cost in terms of time or budget. Efforts and cost in terms of time and budget is also saved. That is the reason we are stating that the errors in this are minimal. In case of errors are minimal. In case of prototyping model. The developed prototype can be reused by the developer for more complicated projects in the future. That means the developed prototype can be reused for next required customers. Suppose if there is any customer requirement which is similar to the earlier one, then we can reuse that. That means the reuse functionality is used here. Is possible. Then flexibility in design. While designing the product, there is a flexibility of incorporating new features into the existing system. So that is why it is called as incorporating new features into the existing model is possible, or is the flexibility that the developer experiences. So, moving on to the disadvantages of this prototyping model: costly with respect to the time as well as money, because as I have already discussed with you, costly with in terms of time and budget, time and money, the same thing, the disadvantage is also there, that is costly with respect to budget, costly with respect to time and budget. This is one of the factor. Then we have, there may be too much variation in the requirements each time the prototype is evaluated by the customer. That means if there is any variation in the prototype model, that shall be easily incorporated, but that leads to more efforts of the developer. So this is the next important disadvantage of this prototyping model. Poor documentation leads to continuously changing customer requirements. That means while collecting the information, from a client, if the documentation is not done properly, then that leads to changing customer requirements. Then it leads to changes in customer requirements. That also leads to costly in terms of time and budget. That is CTC to the company will be increased. CTC to company increases. So moving on to the other disadvantages, it is difficult for developers to accommodate all of the changes demanded by the customers. That is what I explained here in terms of time and budget, that increases the CTC to the company for the developer. So if that is the case, it is very difficult for the developer to incorporate every requirement of a customer. That is the one main thing you need to understand here. There are some uncertainties in determining the number of iterations that would be required before the prototype is finally accepted by the customer. That means the uncertainty in determining the number of iterations that would be required before the prototype is finally accepted by the customer. Finally, before the completely refined model is accepted, completely refined model is accepted, it has to be incorporated in prototype model. But that leads to an incomplete software model in terms of prototype. Next, after seeing an early prototype, the customers sometimes demand the actual product to be delivered soon. That means once they look into the prototype model, that is the final refined prototype model, they will be in a hurry to have the product delivered to them. That is also another disadvantage. That is, once the final prototype model is delivered, the customer expects the delivery of working model soon, which is another disadvantage of this software prototyping, extreme software prototyping model. Moving on to another disadvantage, we have in a hurry to build the prototypes may end up with suboptimal solutions. We will not get the full optimal solutions. We may land up in developing the suboptimal solutions. That is the important thing you need to notice here. The customer might lose interest in the product if he or she is not satisfied with the initial prototype. That means if the customer is not satisfied with the prototype model, he or she might lose interest in the initial prototype. He or she may lose interest in the initial prototype model as it is incomplete, towards the desired requirement of the customer. So we have to be very much careful with all these things. Use of these prototype uses. That means the prototype model should be used when the requirements of the product are not clearly understood or unstable. When it is not clearly understood and unstable, the prototyping model is essential. It can also be used if the requirements are changing quickly. Suppose if the customer is changing his requirements very often, then we can do those changes using the prototype model. That is also an important use of this. Which is that this model can be successfully used for developing user interfaces, for example, GUI. Then I technologies, software intensive systems are also called as cutting edge technologies. All these are certain types of information. Along with that, systems with algorithms, complex algorithms and interfaces. It is a very good choice to demonstrate the technical feasibility of the product. That means the technical feasibility of the software product can be assessed very well. That is the most important thing you need to observe here. So with this, I'm going to conclude this session, Extreme Prototyping Model. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.